When I first started on the police force in the city of Pocono, majority of my career was with the Worcester County Criminal Enforcement Team. Things were okay, but I noticed things were done a little different there. They really had a different point of view when it came to law enforcement. Initially, I was the first and only African-American selected to the Worcester County Criminal Enforcement Team. Everything was okay, everything was great. I was learning something new. We were on a big case, so everything was great. But I noticed things started to change once that case was over. I noticed I became, the butt of a lot of jokes. A lot of things were said racially, and eventually I kind of felt like I was an outsider with working with them. So I experienced several racial issues while working with the Worcester County Criminal Enforcement Team. Certain questions were always asked to me about, African Americans, how do you grow your hair? Because during the time I had locks. And then, once they found out what locks were, they looked at me as being dirty. They kind of felt like they had to wipe down, doorknobs, and if I touched something, they had to clean it after me. Also, a bloody deer tail was left on my car windshield. We thought it was by a suspect, but it was actually by one of my co-workers. I was taken to a Ku Klux Klan meeting location. We're told that don't be surprised if you see a noose hanging from the tree or whatever. Initially, I was shocked. I couldn't believe it because, at one time I thought these guys were my friends, but once, time started to progress, I realized that really they're not. I knew I needed to file a complaint to protect myself. Initially, I knew that with everything that was going on, I had to tell somebody about this. I couldn't just, because it was starting to get to a point where it was starting to affect me, my sleeping habits, I was having chest pains, and I was under a lot of stress. And I didn't know what to do initially, so I started Googling things. I started talking to Lieutenant Green and Chief Sewell more and more about the things that I was experiencing, things that were going on, to the point, they recommended that I file a EEOC complaint. That's when I went to Baltimore and filed my complaint. I heard several stories of officers that actually went through things, but looked at it as, I'm not gonna make my situation worse than what it already is. If I tell somebody, they're gonna come after me. Once I filed the complaint, I was hoping that, I would be protected. I was hoping that, it would stop, but it didn't stop. It actually got worse. It was like, everybody just really started coming after me. They wanted to charge me criminally. They were having meetings trying to figure out what was going on with me. They wanted me fired. They were really stressing me out. They took me out of my role as detective. They put me back into patrol. They wanted me on the midnight shifts. I couldn't make any arrests. Even the people in the community knew what was going on. And, they would let me know, I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. We're praying for you, but, it's really, they hold all the cards here. It's nothing you can do. Ultimately, my fight now is for holding people accountable for their actions and what they've done. I don't feel like, they should be able to get away with things like this. We are not in a century or a decade where things like this actually is allowed anymore. Things have changed. People have rights. And if they're being treated a certain way, it's their right to speak up about it, because ultimately, they're doing the right thing. Which I'm doing. I'm doing the right thing, and I'm telling the truth. And I'm exposing those who think they can get away with things like this. Well, I would like to tell other fellow officers that, things like this occur all the time, and we see things like this. It's our job to hold them accountable for their actions, because nobody should be allowed to get away with things like this. We come to do a job, we put our lives on the line every day, but we should not have to experience things like this.